Right now. How's it going, Mets fans? It's Wardy here, and we're going to break down our further reactions and analysis to the Mets doing the improbable, and that is heading to the NLDS for the first time in nearly a decade. In tonight's show, we're going to go over some key highlights, some further fan reactions, along with comments from Carlos Mendoza and other aspects of this roster as the Mets had their pre-series pressers, to kickstart their series beginning tomorrow around 4:05 p.m. Eastern or so against the Philadelphia Phillies. They're at Citizens Bank Park. From there, we're also going to take a complete preview into that Phillies series as we're going to go over the rotation matchups, what's expected for games 1 and 2, potentially 3 and 4 at minimum right now in a best-of-5 series between these heated rivals, in which they'll be matching up in playoffs for the first time in their respective histories. That is beyond exciting as someone who despises Philly as much as I do, as someone who loves this rivalry as much as I do. So that is what we're going to get into, everybody. And then the little cherry on top before we close it out, we're going to take some live callers from you amazing Mets fans. If you guys want to share your further reactions and thoughts about what Pete Alonso did last night, or just really some questions that you might have for me heading into the NLDS, whatever your thoughts might be, I'm going to try to answer as many as I possibly can. But let's do a roll call first, everybody. Thank you all so much for chiming in for a late night edition of what we have here, a nice series preview and a further reaction to the boys cracking NLDS play. We got Jays, JTB, Los Body, how you doing? Kenny going up the list, Connor, Oliver, Ricky, Connor, JTB, Libra, Kish, great member, Gorilla, great member, Chosen, how are you? We got a lot of amazing Mets fans in here. Hyper, Carlos, Scott A, Malone, yes, I know, I'm always late, buddy. Alan, Cherno, great members, D-Mac, great member, Gone, how you doing? Ariel, thank you, D-Mac, come one, come all. Nick Bowden, great member, Sean MD, great member. How are you all doing this evening, everybody? You know what? Let's do it because why not, right? Let's do it one more time for the people in the back. We usually only do this for post-game coverage, but given the fact that the Mets won in such a dramatic fashion yesterday that it truly feels like a pinch me, I'm dreaming moment. No, I did not go to bed until early 6 a.m. Yes, I did get some sleep, but it was really just a late start to the day because of it. So I might be all over the place a little bit, as one can expect after what truly felt like not only a high like never before, but seriously, you could have been sober the past decade and you're waking up today feeling hungover because no, it's not like you were pounding drinks per se, unless you were, of course, at the game at Citi Field or at some of the amazing Mets bars that we saw last night, which is awesome, everyone that was partaking in those watch parties respectfully. But what we saw there and just breaking a sweat on the edge of our seat, screaming our lungs out the entire time, and simply can't stand still. That's what led me to feeling the way that I did today. I think a lot of you guys feel the exact same way. But folks, before we break down everything in the show in our latest edition presented by BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook, and you guys can check them out today by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and 125% bonus on your following two for a total of 3 up to $2,000. But folks, let's let it rip as we always do because the Mets are riding high. They got an off day, so let's enjoy this one, baby, with the official, the one, the only, the official NLDS version of, yes, WardyNYM post-game jingle, baby. Let's go. Shout out to my guys Greg and Jordan with the official post-game jingle as always. And if you guys are wondering what the heck just happened, what just happened was a jingle that's heard around from thousands in the Mets community every single night when the Mets win ball games. And yes, the Mets don't have a ball game play tonight, but it doesn't matter because we're riding high off of that victory as if it just happened, because it did. We have been through absolute every emotion imaginable over the past 4 days. From the doubleheader Game 1 victory in that dramatic fashion, literally one of the best regular season games you will ever witness as a fan. It doesn't get any crazier of an ending like that there in the 8th inning, to rally back to lose the lead because Edwin again, and then bam, and Lindor says we're going to the playoffs. Then you advance there to take Game 1 in Milwaukee against a Brewers team that has killed you all season. You drop Game 2 late in a dramatic fashion, and Game 3, after looking like you're going to lose in dramatic fashion late, Polar Bear Pete Alonso does the unthinkable, does something that has certainly now put himself in the record books, not only for Mets history, but yes, we're talking about something that could directly impact how the Mets go about him this offseason. And that is nothing to be complaining about, if you ask me. Harrison, how can we call in? How you guys will be able to call in will be the following. After we go through our first couple segments, as I mentioned in a second, I'm then going to put a StreamYard link available in the live chat for my live viewers. And per usual, you guys will be able to click that link, put in the same name as you do on YouTube. That way I know who's who. Keep your camera on, even though I'm not going to show you here on screen, just for obvious reasons, because sometimes people like to be schmucks and not act the way that they're supposed to act here on the platform, and then just voice your opinions, have your thoughts and voices heard on your further reactions to the Mets winning, cracking NLDS play, maybe your biggest questions heading into the series, your confidence level, lack thereof, whatever it might be. That is what we're going to break down together. But how you doing, David West, great member? Thank you so much. My man, Amazing Vintage, how are you? Master Chess Move by Stearns. Oh, don't you worry. First of all, Amazing Vintage, I love you, brother. I saw you absolutely freaking out with everybody in the bar yesterday there in the 7 line with Mark and everything, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so happy you were there. I'm so happy to see all these amazing Mets fans coming together as a community here for these watch parties, whether it's at Citi Field like I'm about to show you, or whether it's at respective bars. I absolutely love it. And while I wish I was there for those moments, I am grateful that I was here breaking it down with the thousands of you guys yesterday, as I'm very happy and excited to announce that yesterday was the second largest live show in WardyNYM content history thus far. It is now second behind the Trevor Bauer Sweepstakes live stream back in, yes, the 2021 offseason. It's been that long. We hit, I think, over 40,000 views at least yesterday. Absolutely insane just for one live show. Thank you guys all so much for that. That's exactly why I do what I do, not only because of the viewership, but because of how much we come together as a community. Something that I didn't have the privilege of going through as a Mets fan growing up, because I don't reside in Queens. I don't reside in New York. I reside in Philly country, just an hour out to be exact. So I'm around Philly fans more than anything. So it feels really, really good to build this community together and be interacting. And to us now have the reach that we have is simply jaw-dropping. So thank you guys so much for that. Seriously. But let's already get into this, everybody, because I want to start with this. Seriously. This reaction from a follower of mine at x-bsant on X. Listen up, folks. This is what I'm sure many of you Mets fans were doing at Citi Field yesterday.
Let's go, Mets! Let's go, Mets! Let's go, Mets! Let's... Yeah! Mets! Please walk! I don't give a shit right now!
The kid's yelling just like me. Please walk. I don't give a shit right now. Just do something. Lo and behold, little did we know what Pete was going to do. Literal chills.
Let's go, Mets! Let's go!
It doesn't get any better than that. Like, seriously, this is exactly why I told so many of you guys to go to Citi Field when they announced that they'd be doing a watch party if there's a Game 3. And that's the exact reason why. They absolutely packed the place. They filled it up pretty much as they could, because they only did a certain amount of sections there. But now, Citi Field, hopefully, you know, not hopefully, but once the boys are there on Tuesday, oh my goodness gracious. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. We're going to get there soon enough. Oh my goodness. It still truly feels like a pinch me, I'm dreaming moment. It hasn't kicked in yet. It hasn't. Even when I got little sleep and everything, it just simply hasn't. What a reaction. I can't get over that. Pete's amazing. And then look at this. Look at this, everybody. We all heard Howie Rose's call. If you haven't already by now, please enlighten yourself. It's the best radio call you'll ever hear. That was such a great call by Howie that I actually had that second on his call list, only trailing the Mato call that Howie did himself for the New York Rangers as they advanced there to the Stanley Cup in 1994. You know, we only got one more hill to climb, baby. That one is iconic, but this is just under. This call by Howie Rose was so good that the Mets went out of their way themselves, and they actually played the call on the flight in front of Howie to see his, you know, reaction and see how the boys would react too. Let me show you guys this. I love how uncomfortable Howie was at first, too. That's literally how I would be, right? Like, we lose our minds over these grown men. They impact our life and our emotion on a daily basis so much. In the case of Howie, and to a much smaller degree myself, this is also part of our livelihood for work. So when we look at Howie doing great calls as he always does, and now to have the team appreciate it as much, I'm sure that was a little bit of a surreal moment, something that he certainly appreciates, and rightfully so, because he's going right up to Alonso right away, as if basically, you know, he hit the home run himself, and I love that. Howie is the biggest columnist imaginable for a play-by-play fantastic radio show host. Not radio show host, but just radio host there for the Mets. I mean, he's the exact reason why, a huge reason as to why I got into the field of covering the Mets as I do right now. It was because of the voices like Howie that I listened to every single day, especially when I was at work or if I was working outside. I always had my earbuds and listening to Howie and listening to the call, and it just always told me how much I admired him and how much I wanted to be something like him one day. And even though I'm by no means on Howie's level, I'm so grateful to be in this space and be impacting this community in some way, shape, or form, the way that he has the way that he has now been having a lasting impact on the Mets in their history. Just like Jay Horowitz, just like Gary, Keith, and Ron, and just like the next wave of whoever's going to ultimately fill those shoes, whether it's the Keith Rads of the world or whether it's a Wayne Randazzo, who I think we would all love back. And honestly, with Trout not going to be healthy again anytime soon, it looks like, sadly, and Shohei gone, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets circle around with Wayne down the road again once there are changes either in the radio booth or there to SNY there for their play-by-play coverage in general. But that's down the road, so that's all I had to say about that. Just tremendous stuff by Howie Rose. Literally goosebumps and chills every single time you listen to it. It was literally made me choked up. I cried to it last night after we were live, and I had no shame in saying that whatsoever. It just hits the emotion so hard. As you guys can see, I'm actually already balling up again, and I can't even control it. Seriously, we don't have a lot of things to be excited about as Mets fans. On a year-by-year basis, we don't have a lot of key takeaways that we can certainly say, like, wow, that really impacted me for the better. It's moments like these that just have such a lasting impact that it doesn't matter how you act, it doesn't matter how irrational you get, we all understand because we're Mets fans. Sean, thank you so much for the $5 Holly. Says, now this call is better than anything about them Dookie Rangers calls. Let's go Islanders and Mets. No. I strongly disagree there, Sean. Thank you for the donation, though. I appreciate that. That's a big question. Where would you guys rank the call? All right. I know it's tough, but for any Ranger and Met fans out there that are watching this specifically, I'm asking for your opinion because you guys have the best opinion when it comes to this. Do you think that the Mato call was better than what we just heard from Howie last night, or do you think that Howie's call that he just did last night trumps his Mato back for the Rangers in 1994? Really, really interested to see what you guys have to say about that. Sean, you don't got to spam it. We know what your answer is going to be there. We all know. That's cracking me up. 1940, as if that was still relevant, Ron. More like 1980. Vito, how you? Oh, never mind. I read the wrong thing. Gary should make play-by-play calls for the SMY Studios. Well, they're basically giving him the next best thing. He's been doing post-game coverage for them every night. So it's been really nice to hear Gary's thoughts about the club and everything. And before we get into actually previewing the series and getting into some massive updates, folks, let's actually get into a really awesome start, which is what we saw yesterday with the boys.
Let's go!
So good. So good. There were so many other clips, too, from the clubhouse. I saw Lindor going bananas, and I loved it. After Lindor got a beer poured on him, he did a nice freaking, like, 1-2 or a 1-2-3 combo, which it was so sick. He literally looked like Tyson out there. Bah, bah, bah. He was just so hyped up, and to see Lindor, like, clearly the team leader that we saw jumping on the field right here, like, this exactly shows you that he is our captain. Like, if you needed further proof, which I don't know why or how you would need that, here's further proof of Francisco Lindor clearly being the guy for the Mets. He's just such a dog. How can he not be obsessed with that man? Seriously. What a treat. What a treat he is. All right, folks, let's get into the big updates. And it starts with a quick video we did earlier today that you guys can check out if you haven't already for the initial reaction. But let's hear from Mendy's mouth himself.
Who's starting for you tomorrow?
Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga is going tomorrow.
And what do you expect he'll be able to give you?
We'll see. We're going to let it play out. He's been in Florida throwing, facing hitters. We have a plan. But we're going to go out there and watch him closely and go from there. But he's ready to go, and that's where we're going with him on game one.
Awesome stuff. Great news from Mendy. So, initial reaction, because a lot of people were freaking out when the Senga news first came out, including myself, rightfully so. I literally jumped out. I was actually at the moment, I was helping. My girlfriend and I were actually cleaning out our shed today, and we were just reorganizing everything. And I just looked down, and I got the update. I was like, oh, God. I'm like, all right, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I grabbed my mini mics, my mini DJI mics, which I highly recommend anyone when you're on the go, when you're trying to do recordings. They're a little pricey, but they're definitely worth it. Pop those bad boys in right away to do the video, because Kodai Senga, even with Kodai Senga at, say, 40, 50 pitches, which is where I'd imagine he will fall this Saturday, depending on how he looks or lack thereof early, facing Zach Wheeler in game one of this Phillies matchup. Now, Senga, as we know, has pitched 5 innings, struck out 9, and allowed a 1 earned run or so against the Atlanta Braves before going down with injury. Senga pitched a 25-pitch bullpen. He's been working in Florida, and he said it himself today in his interview that it doesn't matter if it's 10 pitches or 200 pitches, whatever the Mets ask of him, he will deliver on, or at least he will attempt to deliver on. So it won't be for a lack of effort there. Mind you, if there are things that are going in the Mets' way when it comes to Senga, they are as follows. This is a Kodai Senga at his best career start against the Philadelphia Phillies back on May 30th last year. If I'm not mistaken, was at that ball game as well, because I saw Kodai Senga simply dominate the Phillies on multiple occasions last year, especially behind home plate. Very grateful for all the games I got to experience last season between the Mets and the Phillies, because the Mets fared very well, even when they had such an underwhelming season, and the Phillies went on to dominate, and had themselves, 100+ win season or so around there. And yes, they fell short, but they fell short of making the dance for the second straight year. And, they probably would have lost for a second straight year, but that's besides the point. This is a very hungry Phillies team that we know of, but we have a Kodai Senga on that ghost fork entering back in this rotation, and this is such a chess move by Carlos Mendoza. And let's get into the reasons as to why this is. Because one, thankfully with Kodai Senga, he has not been having a mechanical issue. That's something very important to make note of here. This is not a Senga that is being rushed because of elbow inflammation or shoulder inflammation. No, this had to do with his calf that unfortunately had that strain there all those months ago. So now as he fast forward now, he's feeling good, he's looking good. Now it's just basically being precautionary with Senga, where you you'd want to make sure he doesn't rush and gets hurt again, and then bam, you're without him to start next season when you missed him all of 2024. But it's do or die time now, and you want to get creative, especially against a Phillies team that's going to be thrown out the kitchen sink on the offensive end. If you're wondering, what do you mean by that? What I mean is that they're going to be throwing everything our way. There's so much firepower in that Phillies lineup from top to bottom. We know it. I expect them to be a batter's box there that entire weekend. I don't expect there to be pitchers duels where, we're going to have a 2-1 game at any point in the first two games, even with Wheeler on the bump. I really do not foresee it to happen. I think they're going to both come out guns swinging big time. But Kodai Senga now entering the fold as, say, a starter for, say, anywhere from 1 to 3+ innings, what's so exciting about that is that sets the tone. So if he comes out, he, say, dominates, God willing, knocking on wood, then you bring in David Pearson. That's 100% what you do. That was my first thought as soon as I saw that Senga, knowing that he's not going to be stretched out to give us 7 innings. If Senga goes out this Saturday and gives the Mets even 5 innings, I will be jaw-dropped, but I will be ecstatic. And that'll really all be indicative on the pitches that he throws. So it is up to Kodai Senga here. It wouldn't be shocking if he actually could find himself in the range of giving the Mets 3-4+ innings if he can keep that pitch count low inning by inning. But the big question is, especially in Philly, is he going to walk anyone early? Because if he walks anyone early, usually the bugaboo with Senga is kind of that early command after an inning or so, and then he really hankers down from there. Now, the big question with Senga and his lack of play this season is we don't exactly know what we're getting, but if we are going to take that sample size they had against the Atlanta Braves at all, what we know is that he was locked in then. You can expect him to be locked in now in a playoff atmosphere. Kodai Senga has not wavered whatsoever from stepping up in the light when the Mets have asked thus far as young MLB tenure, and I don't expect that to waver whatsoever now. So you're going to bring in Kodai Senga for at least a couple innings to kickstart the ball game, and then you're going to bring in David Pearson. Peterson, who of course secured the save for the Mets yesterday, all thanks to Francisco Lindor saying, Acuna, love you, kid, but this is my moment. I'm the captain on this team. I'm bolted. I'm getting that double play, and we're heading to the NLDS. Literally chills. I still can't believe he did that in the fashion they did. It was better than any effing script. It was better than any Moneyball-esque movie that you could have imagined is what the Mets did last night. All the numbers, everything was against them to a T, and they just said, shut up, bud. We're winning this ball game. Now, as we fast forward to the NLDS here, what's really exciting is not only to have David Pearson there, but you know that the Mets are going to have their guys fairly fresh. So then game 2, Luis Severino is going to be matched up, and he's going to be facing Christopher Sanchez there, the southpaw. Sanchez, who has had success against the Mets this season, as we know. We saw it, especially there in Philly, where the Mets lost that ball game like 2-1, where David Pearson pitched a gem, but the Tyrone Taylor got the late rally of a home run or so in the 8th inning, and then the Phillies scored 2, I believe, in this stupid fashion, because just like we saw the day before or so with Danny Young gaining a jam or Reed Garrett not getting the job done, it just wasn't good. And mind you, I was also at the game where the Mets had themselves a 4 or 5 run lead to kick it off on that Saturday game. Then they ended up losing because they brought in Danny Young. He couldn't get any outs. Reed Garrett allows the runs to come in, and then it absolutely gets blown up from there, sadly, because of Stevenson, the schmuck that he is, with elite defense, and then the go-ahead, RBI double or so, or 2-run double that ultimately won the ball game for them. But even though the Mets lost that series, they have familiarity against Sanchez, and just like the Mets, had terrible numbers heading into their series against the Brewers, it doesn't mean for certain that what the regular season results are going to be is going to equal what we have here and playoff results. And the Brewers and their fans sadly had to learn the hard way. Thankfully, I can't relate to that issue. But this Mets team, as they match up now in this series, there are a couple key things to make note of. And let's start with the rotation matchups, because game 1, as we start, Kodai Senga for our first couple innings, and David Pearson is likely going to be your length guy there against Zach Wheeler, in which Zach said nothing against the Mets whatsoever, and I appreciate that. I will always be a Zach Wheeler fan. It kills me to see him in a Phillies uniform because I do actively root for him. It's a very hard thing to do. As a fan, it's been a balance for me on trying to figure out what guys I want to root for after leaving the organization or being dealt or things out of their control. And knowing that's kind of hard because it deviates from your fandom as a Mets fan, especially if it's with a rival team. But Zach Wheeler has always been a great guy. There's been never anything wrong with him. And he even openly said in his interview today that, the regimes have changed since he was there. There's no bad blood at all. He has all respect in the world for the guys, but he obviously wants to go out there and win, so that's what he's going to try to do, which I commend and respect as well. Zach Wheeler is going to come out and try to dominate. Thankfully, the Mets have had a decent amount of success against Wheeler at times since he's arrived with the Philadelphia Phillies after Brody Van Wagenen thought, yeah, let's go with Rick Porcello and let's go with Michael Wacha before he even found-tuned his game. Mind you, that was a bum of a rotation. As soon as DeGrom went down that year, we were cooked. There was nothing else to look at. It absolute Swiss cheese, cooked. But as we have Wheeler there and Kodai and then Peterson for game 1, game 2 will be Luis Severino on normal rest there against Sanchez. And the reason for Sanchez playing on Sunday instead of potentially Tuesday against the Mets is, well, I'm going to just let Rob Thompson say it himself.
Yes, it will be Christopher Sanchez.
And can you just explain what went into that decision?
Well, I think, just looking at playing the Mets, going into Citi Field, I think it's going to be a pretty hostile environment. And looking at Sanchez's home road splits, I just thought it was really the smartest thing to do.
Do you have a game 2 starter for us yet?
Yeah.
So that's the latest from Rob Thompson there. I did want to spearhead this question real quick, and then we will continue in the format that we're doing right now, because I see Juan asked in the chat, why are there rumors of Williams tipping pitches? Okay, a brief explanation to answer this. Yes, Devin Williams was 1,000% tipping his pitches yesterday. John Boy did a fantastic job breaking that down, as I'm sure you have all seen by now. If you haven't, just head over to the John Boy Media YouTube channel. They do breakdowns there on, like Jesse Winker talking smack with Willie Adames and the lip read, or what they're also famously known for is noticing if there's tipping pitches or things that give the opposing team an advantage leading up to a big play. Alonso was sitting, and my mistake, I misspoke last night on fastball when that's not true. He was sitting there on the breaking ball of Devin Williams, and Devin was tipping, and Dallas Braden in a separate live watch party, because everyone was doing a watch party yesterday outside myself in the baseball community, rightfully so. But the guys there at the Baseball is Dead podcast with Jared Carabas there, Dallas Braden, Joey, and others, great people, love them all. Dallas was explaining early, and he saw throughout the season how Devin Williams was tipping pitches. And basically, it's your put-out pitch versus your fastball. What's the difference there? And what we noticed is that his fastball hand, how he had it positioned inside the glove. If you're looking from the vantage point of just watching on TV and you see Williams get set for the pitch, he had his hand in a clearly different spot than what he had for the breaking pitch. And that made it pretty easy for Alonso to ultimately pick up. I don't know to what degree he picked it up, but he clearly picked it up well, because Alonso was sitting on that specific pitch that he got for a meatball, that he went oppo on. And that's exactly why Devin Williams, for the first time, and I literally mean for the first time in his history as a closer, as a MLB pitcher, has given up an opposite field home run. So that is a simple response to that. Was Williams tipping? Yes. But did the Mets take advantage of it? Yes. The Mets have dealt with pitchers tipping many times in the past and did not take advantage of it. So that was still a massive moment. That does not waver from it whatsoever. That was easily one of the biggest home runs in postseason history, period, not just with the Mets. D-Mac, thank you so much for the donation. Any hope to re-sign Wheeler? I would have said yes if he didn't sign an extension with the Phillies this past year, and he did. So yeah, no, Zach Wheeler, I don't see ever being a Met unless the Mets considered him, really in his later 30s after his tenure's done with the Phillies. Other than that, I don't see it happening at all, personally. And I also completely disagree with Rob Thompson. I mean, if we're going to talk about hostile environment, I think hostile for the sense of players to handle, like where they can be intimidated by Mets fans, that's true. Like, they're going to be rowdy as all hell. I can only imagine how bonkers Citi Field is going to be with the light show and everything now. This is going to be a bigger scene than we have ever seen in Flushing, ever. This is going to trump potentially what we saw in 2015 with the World Series. This will trump potentially even at times what we saw at Shea, depending on what we're going to see here. I'm probably exaggerating on Shea because obviously economy was much different then. It was much easier to go to ball games, and it was also a lot easier to pack the stadium and just go absolutely bananas and being standing room only where you didn't have to pay for it and just all those kind of things. Sneaking into Shea Stadium, I know family friends who have certainly done their fair share of exactly that. Don't act like your family friends haven't either back in the day, because I'm sure they have too. But I digress. I disagree with Thompson here, and I'm sure he probably feels this way at least a little bit. At least I disagree in the sense of it being hostile, like, oh my God, they're treating them poorly. Yes, we're going to heckle and stuff, but it's in no comparison to Philly. I go to Philly all the time for Mets-Phillies games, and Philly fans are unprecedented. Even in, like, meaningless summer games, you will catch fans literally pissing on a kid because he's half-ass drunk. No, I'm not exaggerating. Look it up. It's happened before. I've seen fights all the time. I was there a couple of years ago with the 7 line, and the Mets lost, and a Philly fan took beads away from a kid's necklace, like orange and blue beads, and tossed them like out into a different section, which almost started a fight right then and there. He did it right in front of his father too, which was like, it made no sense whatsoever. He was a literal kid. It wasn't even like he was a teenager, 16, 17, 18 years of age, talking shit. Nothing validated. And those are just little examples. I've seen much more. I've walked out, I've talked shit, I've gotten shit talked to me, and that's fine. I've also had great interactions with Philly fans too, like I did actually tonight, right before we started the live show. I was at a store actually called Rally House, where they have a bunch of memorabilia of your local teams, and I'm in the Philly area, so they had a lot of Philly stuff. And as I was in there, I was surrounded by nothing but Phillies fans. But as I was exiting, a Philly fan looks at me, and with a big smile on his face, he says, "Good luck tomorrow, my man." And that was very nice. I appreciate that. I said, "Same to you," even though I wish you absolute hell. Nothing personal, but I absolutely hope that we bury you guys in your grave over the next couple days and we take the first 3, and that's that. Obviously, I don't foresee the first 3 to happen. We just need to win the series. That's the most important thing. But the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, you're going to have a lot of hostile environment when it comes to fans. And Philly, more than anywhere, I would rightfully argue, because they go insane. I've been there for Flyers games, very intense. I've been around for Eagles games, and we know how insane that gets. There's unprecedented versus any other sport there. Flyers, Phillies, even Sixers. I was there when the Knicks eliminated them in playoffs this past year, and there were fights breaking out left, right, and center around me. The only reason why I didn't get heckled is because I didn't have any Knicks gear on, because I really don't have a lot of Knicks gear. I'm still waiting to get my first true Knicks jersey of a player. I have one Knicks hat, and I decided not to wear it because I think I actually wore this Mets hat, if I'm not mistaken. So either way, it can be hostile, but I'm sure Rob is relaying this information because he knows what it's like to be in Philly, so he's expecting maybe something similar there in Queens. On the hostility, I would say that's wrong, but on the environment, the atmosphere of being electric, I would say that's absolutely right. So that's all the latest comments there and the big updates on Carlos Mendoza, among others. David Pearson did speak as well, which I'd like to show each and every one of you. And then we'll expand a little bit more on the series preview and on the offensive end. This is what I was referring to, everybody, on the start for Kodai Senga's best start of his career. 7 innings, 1 hit, 0 earned runs, 0 walk, 9 strikeout baseball. And yes, I was at this game. I was just a little bit to the right. I was out of the home plate frame, a little bit to the right in this matchup. And Kodai just absolutely dominated the Philadelphia Phillies in this one.
2-2, and stock goes down.
I cannot wait to see that Ghost 4. You have no idea how excited I mean, you guys do know how excited I am. And what am I saying? We are the same here. I simply cannot wait to see that happen. David Pearson on his availability tomorrow.
So after the rush of your first professional save, were you able to sleep at all last night, or did you have to stay up?
Yeah, it was a long night just with the travel and everything, and so I tried to get some sleep today, but yeah, definitely going to try and catch up on some more tonight and be ready to go.
Love that. So Pearson, as expected, will likely be the bulk guy for the Mets tomorrow, barring changes, and also to see how deep of an outing Kodai Senga is going to have in his long-awaited, highly anticipated, and oh so exciting return. So that's all the latest remarks I really have to share with you guys from the Mets that, stood out to me. Everything else was just awesome reactions from the boys. Let's see if there's anything else, really notable. There's the squad together. Look at them in their glory. They deserve it. They absolutely do. There's no team more deserving with everything that they went through with the highs and the lows this season. They absolutely battled. And yes, the offense was anemic terribly. Really, the past 2 games, all it takes is just one swing, and that's a difference maker, folks. Right there in front of us is our 2024 New York Metropolitans headed to the NLDS. Let's also minimize this a little bit so you guys can see more of the players in the frame there. That's just such a sick shot. I'm just so proud. I'm so happy for each and every one of them, because one more thing that we also have to bear in mind, this Mets team will never be the same Mets team again. After 2024, this squad will not all be here. There will be players that we like that will not be here next season. There will be guys that we don't like that will also not be here next season. Either way, this squad is not going to be the same ever again. There's never a situation where it's to a T the same, because injuries inevitably happen, trades inevitably happen, signings inevitably happen, drastic changes throughout the offseason because you found out news that you weren't expecting what other teams happen, and this all leads to the point of this is the final time that we're going to see this specific squad likely together. So appreciate it for what it is, everybody. With all the highs, all the lows, with all the holes, and with everything filled, this is a special Mets squad that we certainly are happy to be cheering for in the year of 2024. Now, to get back into series preview, everybody, let's talk a bit here on the rotation, because outside of Severino and Sanchez, their game 2, there's that off day on Monday, which I really appreciate. We'll probably do a live show similar to this on Monday to kind of rehash where we are 2 games in the series from there and the evening heading into Tuesday's matchup. But the good thing, though, is that the Mets will finally get some rest outside today. They will have that off day there after this weekend's games, which is awesome before heading back to Citi Field. When they do head back to Citi Field, I'd imagine that the rotation for the Mets, should they need to play both games 3 and 4, will be Sean Manaea game 3, game 1 at Citi Field, and Jose Quintana game 4, game 2 at Citi Field. So as things are aligned right now, we're going to have it as follows for the Mets. You're going to have Kodai Senga and or David Peterson tomorrow. Then you're going to have Saturday is going to be Luis Severino. Sunday is going to be Luis Severino. So Saturday, not tomorrow. Yes, I'm an idiot. My apologies. Saturday, Kodai, Peterson. Sunday, Sevy. Tuesday, Sean. And Wednesday, Mr. Not Kodai Senga, Quintana. So that's what we have there. And I'm not opposed to that. It's crazy how I actually have confidence in Mr. Jose Quintana. Like, after going 6 shutty yesterday, guys, like, let's not forget this. Remember, folks, let me enlighten you. This happened yesterday. 6 shutty to do that against the Brewers when Sean Manaea and Severino, again, just weren't giving you the best outings you were hoping for. Sevy wasn't terrible by any stretch. He still gave us length, but still gave up 4 earned. Sean, obviously, had a solid outing, but, you know, for Jose Quintana to look the most comfortable out of the 3 in a do-or-die elimination game where both teams could be eliminated, it's insane. That's so insane to me that he was really able to muster that. But it shows the veteran leadership that is Jose. It shows the mental toughness, and it also shows his experience coming into play to his advantage. Even though he's a soft-tossing lefty, he has so much experience against these teams, especially there in the NL Central as a former Chicago Cub and former Pittsburgh Pirate, at least. Quintana has faced these teams a fair share amount of times, knows the ballparks well, and just knows what it's like to be in these playoff atmosphere. It feels like yesterday Jose Quintana had himself a strong playoff start for the St. Louis Cardinals a couple of years ago, where Jose had the best home run per 9 in all of Major League Baseball that year. That's when he started the first half of the season there with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Then he was traded the St. Louis Cardinals there around the deadline, and then he was sharp for them as well and was one of their key starters in postseason play. Funny enough, we advanced 2+ years later or so, and that hasn't changed with Jose Quintana. He's still very much that very solid southpaw option that you can call upon, and maybe you're not going to get him to dominate every time because the Phillies team can absolutely rake, and we're going to transition to the offensive end of this discussion in a second, but you just got to be impressed with what Quintana has certainly been able to do thus far this season. Now, to get back into this, everybody, let's talk about the offense, because on the offensive end, this Phillies team is locked and loaded. We know this. Between having a playoff hero and Bryce Harper, which everyone should be worried about. No one shouldn't be. I'm not telling you guys that be all fearful heading into this matchup, but Bryce Harper snapped his basically, 30-game home run lack thereof skid, where he didn't have a home run for 30 games. All he needed was to play the Mets Saturday ago, a couple weekends ago, where I was at attendance, and the Mets ended up losing that series as Harper rallied the troops back and hit not 1 but 2 home runs. Bryce always dominates the Mets. You should expect that pretty much every time out there. Now, the problem is you pair that with Trey Turner, who dominates the Mets plenty. Not only a high flyer on the bags, who is a huge problem for the Mets to have to deal with throughout this series, is the Phillies are going to run. Edmundo Sosa, we're going to look at Alec Boehm to a degree. Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, who I just started the conversation with Trey Turner. They have guys that can steal bags on this Philly roster, so we need to be very cognizant of that. As we've seen, when the Mets get ran on plenty, they're going to lose the ball game because they can't stop it. So you got to eliminate the walks 1 to then help eliminate the steals 2. Now, as we look at the offensive end for the Phillies, outside of what you have there in your home run heroics from Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, who can be definitely swing and miss, and he went from showing up massively there in the NLDS, which is not a good thing to say, thinking about it. He dominated the NLDS last year, then absolutely got shelled in the NLCS, where he had no hits at all. Hopefully we see the latter be the case here again in this year's NLDS, but Nicky C is looking for some big home runs Kyle Schwarber always torches us. You got to be very careful with him. Again, defense doesn't matter. The guy absolutely rakes, and he's hitting well above the Mendoza line this year, so it's not even like we can really use that against him at all. And then you add in Bryson Stott. You add in Alec Boehm, who's such a fantastic high-contact hitting third baseman. You add in Amundo Sosa, who can definitely be a sneaky player for the Phillies at times. He's had some strong runs since leaving the St. Louis Cardinals. You add in every aspect of this Phillies team, and of course, they're at the backstop, one of the best and most well-balanced catchers in the game in JT Realmuto. You come to the realization that this is going to be far from an easy task. Have the Mets handle the Phillies before? Yes, they absolutely have. Do I have the utmost confidence that they can go out there and do it again? For sure. But we also know that playing in Citizens Bank Park is the hardest disadvantage the Mets could have. The Phillies have the best playoff record among all eligible teams in Major League Baseball right now at home. No, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. The fans not only show out, but it really helps the boys dominate. And this Philly team, they have such a captain, they have such a Team USA vibe to them between Turner, Harper, etc. Like, I just feel like you're expected to hear a scorching eagle as soon as the game starts, just flying over Citizens Bank Park. Like, that just vibes you get. And Philly fans are opting for that piece of shit you call a player in Chase Utley to go out and throw out first pitch. We expect alumni to be there. I'm sure Ryan Howard, I'm sure Jimmy Rollins, if he's not doing coverage for TBS, which I'm sure he actually may be doing that, if not for Bleacher Report, is going to be out there potentially present himself. Chase Utley, I actually hope is there, so that way if the Mets win game one, it'll feel all that much more sweeter to see that schmuck go out of his way to go to the game just for that to be the end result. I would love for Daniel Murphy to show up too, right? That would be beautiful, so he could kick his teeth in that little home run derby they did back in London earlier back in the summer. But either way, what I'm trying to say here is that the Mets have themselves a tall task to head into Philly and to try to muster any wins, let alone to try to get the first two in a 5-game set against the Phillies because of the fan base, because of this team, and most importantly, not only them being a strong team, winning the division, even though the Mets had the best record in MLB after the month of May. The Mets did take 3 out of 4 against them before the season ended. This is a Phillies team that is due. Okay, when I say they are due in the sense of the Kansas City Royals being due when they sadly ended the Mets' run in 2015. The Royals dominated the Mets in that series, simply put, because they had the experience. They went to the World Series the year prior and they lost. So it wasn't shocking to see the Royals a year later get back to the dance and finally get the job done against a very inexperienced Mets team in 2015. Fast forward 9 years later, the Philadelphia Phillies 2 years ago went all the way to the World Series. Last year, they fell just short of going to the World Series again to the Diamondbacks there in the NLCS. They're hungry as ever to get back not only in postseason play, but to get back to the dance in which they truly feel that they have the core group to make it happen. From their bullpen to their rotation to their offense, the Phillies are without question one of the most balanced teams that the Mets could find themselves facing in postseason play. If the Mets are somehow, some way able to slay this latest dragon, then you not only have to feel confident, but you should expect the Mets to have themselves a continued special run deep into the remainder of postseason play, however long that might be. So exactly as RP's trying to say, it's not a cakewalk, but we do have magic this year. You're absolutely right. So as I just discussed all the factors that are favoring the Philadelphia Phillies, between the home field advantage, between the great Zach Wheeler, between the tremendous offensive weapons that they have, let's talk about the New York Mets and what they have going. What the New York Mets have going is an X factor unlike any other. As talented as Trey Turner is, and as fantastic as Bryce Harper can be, I will say Bryce and Lindor probably go toe-to-toe in this regard. Francisco Lindor is arguably still the most talented, the most valuable player there on that field in this head-to-head matchup. Lindor has done things this season that Bryce Harper simply hasn't. Lindor has put the team on his back in ways that Harper simply hasn't this year. And while Bryce is known for his playoff heroics, so you should expect him to dominate in at least some of these ball games, Francisco Lindor has also proven early his ability to step up for the Mets in high-leverage, high-clutch situations, and especially in a batter's box in Philly, don't be shocked if we see Lindor with a multi-home run game. I feel that confident in his abilities. Francisco Lindor is the complete aura of this team, not named Jose Iglesias. And speaking of Jose and his amazing remix now with Pitbull out now, make sure to check it out, folks. Jose continues to be such a rally for this Mets team, from flashing the leather with tremendous defensive plays there at second base to grinding out to having game-tying RBIs, diving down the first baseline, in which no one does, let alone a 34-year-old veteran infielder who signed a minor league contract heading into the season. Add that with now a Mark Vientos, who has a lot of success against the Phillies already and loves playing there in Philly. I like the matchups a lot for him, big time. You also add in there what we have in Jesse Winker facing off against Wheels, especially JD Martinez. I like this DH tandem quite a bit. Starling Marte has had such great success throughout his career against the Philadelphia Phillies. Brandon Nimmo has had a huge flair for the dramatic in Philly, especially we have seen in recent years. One of Harrison Bader or Tyrone Taylor, you just feel comfortable about their great defense in center, and then Tyrone's going to provide the offense. Harrison will likely start one of these games potentially, so if he does, we'll see if he can finally get that monkey off his back, because he has not swung the bat well whatsoever. Francisco Alvarez is locked in, taking quality at-bats. I really am excited to see him back out there. This entire roster, and then you add in the X Factor, the one that we have disregarded pretty much all year long because he hasn't stepped up, but he's here now, and that is, yes, Polar Bear Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is the X Factor, folks. A confident, a healthy, a happy Pete Alonso, oozing with confidence after hitting that game-winning home run for the Mets yesterday. I can only imagine how much he's salivating at the matchup now against the Philadelphia Phillies, because Alonso not only proved it to himself, but he proved it to the entire Mets fan base and the organization. He can go out there and beat that guy for this Mets team, something that he hasn't felt or been all year long. I can only imagine not only how relieved he felt from that home run, but now how confident he feels heading into this matchup. That in itself is an X factor, and that is exactly why I do have a confidence level and my Amazons to get the job done, just like each and every one of you folks. And I'm so confident in my Amazons to the degree that I'm going to be hammering them as we head into tomorrow's matchup, folks. As you guys can actually just give me 1 second here to verify that I am human. Yes, I am. We're going to log in there. And folks, let me enlighten you with what we have going with our amazing sponsors at, yes, BetUS. As you guys can see right now, the New York Mets are the money line underdog at plus 158, which means if you deposit $100 and the Mets win outright tomorrow, you're going to come out with $258. Really, really nice turnout there. Even the Mets are on the run line at plus 1.5, meaning that they just got to make sure that they either win or just make sure that they don't lose by, more than a couple runs, whereas the Phillies have to make sure that they win by at least a couple runs. I actually love the run line there for the Mets too, big time. The money line's juicy for sure if you're going to be a confident biased fan. Got the Tigers Guardians as well, which I really like in that head-to-head matchup. Royals Yankees, which is nuts. Padres Dodgers. I love the Padres to slay the dragon. I really do. I really do. But I'm actually going to go all New York here, folks. We're taking Yanks. We're going to take Mets for our two-leg parlay. This is going to be a two-leg that is going to be $10. That's going to win you 28, so a total of 38 if both teams win. It's going to be 10 to win you 15.80 on the Mets outright. It's going to be 10 to win you 5, so half there on the Yankees outright. That is what I'm hammering for our playoff bets. Our latest one tonight, folks. Make sure to hammer, and should you do it, make sure you bet responsibly with our awesome friends at BetUS by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, and win $125 on your following two, and then yes, up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. If you guys are uncomfortable or if you don't want to bet, that's fine, but if you're an active sports bettor, please know that I am not a betting expert. I'm a diehard fan, and I just biasly bet right in front of you. So know what my intent was heading into this. Good luck to you all, no less, with all your sports betting needs at, yes, BetUS. Now to hop back in this one, everybody, let's talk a bit more about the Amazons here, and let's talk a bit about what we have to say from you Mets fans, because we highlighted the Mets offense, we highlighted their key X factors, including their bullpen, where we're going to see how Edwin Diaz can fare in these high leverage situations. Also the sake of Jose Butto trying to rebound after a really shaky outing, giving up those back-to-back home runs. Phil Maton getting rocked. Ryan Stanek, I think, will be a huge X factor for the Mets bullpen throughout this series. I think that goes without saying with the way he's looked thus far. He's looked absolutely brilliant, and you're also going to need to see what type of length you get from these guys too out of the bullpen too, should you call for more than one inning. But thank you all so much for watching live and a replay. I will see you all for in and post-game coverage again, beginning 20 to 30 minutes before tip-off of this game. And I said tip-off as if it's a basketball game. Why? Because Wardy's still over the place with our emotions after Pete Alonso did the improbable over this past night. I will see you all for in and post-game coverage there. If I had to imagine starting 3:30 or 3:40 or so, and then we will smoothly transition to post-game coverage just like we have been doing the past number of days here on WardyNYM. Thank you guys all again. Love you all to death. And as always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby.